good time with your friends. It's going to be a great night. I promise you that. And then that same week, that Friday, we are leaving for HSM Winter Camp 2023. Winter Camp in general is one of my favorites. My life was changed through camp, and I'm really excited about this one. We're going to a new camp that we've never been for. We're programming it ourselves. We actually sat down just this past week and planned some of the stuff out, and I genuinely cannot wait. We don't have a ton of spots left, so be sure to sign up as soon as you can. I'd love for you guys to get a chance to go there. Last thing, as we close out our series tonight, if you guys have been here since the first week, or maybe you join us later on, one of our goals this year is to take what we talk about on Tuesday nights and apply it to your life and go with it. That your relationship with God is not just a Tuesday night thing. Part of the way that we are going to do that, and one of the ways that we're going to equip you to do that, is we want to create a culture of taking notes. Okay, reason for that is, one, you're going to learn it better. Two, if you need, what was that we talked about on Tuesday, you can go and you can find it. It's a reminder, and we want to help you guys do that. So we've been giving out some booklets for you guys to take notes. If you have those, keep taking them. If you want to do it on your phone, in your own notebook, that's great. Tonight, after service, before life groups, if you've been here and taken notes on 3 out of the 4 parts of this series, including tonight. So if tonight's your third, come and find us afterwards. I'll cue you in. I'll tell you when. Come and find us. Show us your notes. Even if it's not in our little booklet, if it's on your phone or whatever, show it to us, and we got a little gift for you. It's nothing big, just something to kind of reward you guys and also for you to remember this series that we've been in. But so go ahead and do that later on. As we were planning this series, we sat down a while ago last year, and we're planning the series, and we were thinking through how we wanted to start the year off. How can we start 2023 on a good note? We kind of started asking questions like, what different answer from one person that I will from another person? So it's hard to get accurate results for that. Nevertheless, a lot of prayer, a lot of research, a lot of talking with you guys, and basically, I came to the conclusion that our first series, I have one goal for it, and it's that you guys be encouraged. Right? That was kind of the goal of this series. That's why we're doing this series, How to Be Confident. I want you guys to leave this series feeling confident, feeling encouraged. Yes, I'm always going to share truth. Sometimes truth is not easy to hear, and even in this series, I'm going to share the truth. But even then, I want you guys to feel encouraged. And not just Christians, but if you're here and you're not a Christian, maybe you go to another church. I don't know where you are, who you identify as, what your beliefs are, whatever it is, white, black, neon, whatever it is, whoever you are, I want you to feel welcome here. I want you to feel encouraged and built up by the Lord. That's the goal of this series. That's why we've been talking about that. That's why week one of this series, I talked about how God knows you. He understands you. It can be discouraging when you feel like no one gets me. God, we see that God knows our innermost thoughts. Whatever is going on internally, your thoughts, your desires, your struggles, your pain, your hurt, God knows you. More than anyone else on this earth will. That should encourage you. We talked about how humility is a huge part of feeling confident. We live in a world where we're constantly having to compete for attention, to prove our worth. You have nothing to prove. Your worth is in the Lord. And a sign of someone who's confident is someone who's able to be humble. Last week, we talked about how God convicts us. He convinces us of the truth. That builds confidence because it takes us away from chaos and confusion. It helps us to be confident that we're on the right path, or when we stray off the path, it helps us find our way back. The whole goal of this series is to build your confidence, to encourage you. And I hope you guys have experienced that. Tonight, we're going to talk about the one thing that I was worried about coming into this series. Coming to this series, all about encouraging you and building your confidence, I had one thing that I was nervous about, and here's what it was. I was nervous that you would leave this series feeling prideful instead of confident. When I was talking to a bunch of people about, hey, we're going to do this series to start the year off about confidence, and a couple people laughed because there are a few teenagers that, yes, it's like, okay, yeah, they definitely need to build their confidence, but a lot of teenagers, a lot of high school students maybe are a little too confident in themselves. That's pride. They're too prideful. We live in a culture that's all about me, myself, and I, my brand. I deserve this, I deserve that, and my worry was that you'd leave this series thinking that I was telling you to be more prideful, and that's not the case. It's very easy to confuse pride and confidence if you don't know the difference. And so tonight I want to address that. I want to address that there is a difference and show you the difference and why it's so important to know the difference. To know the difference. All throughout this series, we've been talking about one main character. Who we've been talking about in this series? David. We've been talking about David. We've talked about David as a shepherd. We've talked about David as a son. We've talked about David as the servant of the king. We've talked about David as king, but we've kind of avoided probably the most famous part of David's story, David and Goliath. Tonight we're going to talk about David and Goliath. David and Goliath, probably the most famous story when it comes to David, one of the most famous stories in the Bible, even in the non-Christian world. People throw around this David and Goliath phrase all the time. Anytime there's an underdog or there's a huge accomplishment, it's like, oh, that was a real David and Goliath moment, right? And that's awesome. This is a great story. There's a lot of stuff to learn from it. But tonight, instead of just looking at the accomplishments of David and this underdog side of things, I want us to look at this kind of deeper root issue that we see happening in this story. When we read David and Goliath, we don't just read this boy versus this giant. We read about a characteristic, a trait that is personified by each of the people. Goliath, we'll see tonight, personifies pride in such a particular way. It's almost a perfect example of what pride looks like. David, on the other hand, confidence. And what we're going to see tonight is that really it's pride that leads to Goliath's downfall and confidence that leads to David's victory. So when we read the story of David and Goliath, we're really reading the story of confidence versus pride. Now, if you don't know that there is a difference, there is a huge difference between confidence and pride. Even in the Bible, we see there's a difference between confidence and pride. Proverbs 11:2. When pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with the humble is wisdom. Talk about how humility oftentimes goes with confidence. And so right there we see that. But more importantly, what do we see about pride? Where there's pride, there's disgrace. If you fall victim to pride, which is easy to do, especially in our culture, and it can be disguised as confidence, it's going to lead to loneliness and destruction and disgrace. It's going to lead to a lot of things in your life that you don't have to experience. And tonight I want to show you that there is a difference. I found a quote that kind of sums up the difference, and we'll see it throughout this story, but I want to read it first just so you can kind of be aware of what the difference between pride and confidence is. Pride refers to the satisfaction that an individual gains from their own abilities and achievements. I'll read that part again. Pride refers to the satisfaction that an individual gains from their abilities and achievements. So pride is when I'm satisfied with my own achievements, with my skills, with my strengths. That's pride. Confidence, on the other hand, refers to the trust that someone has about something. A significant difference between the two stems from the quality of humility. That might not make sense to you yet, but it will as we read this story. You'll see the difference. You'll see the difference. Now, before we even start, hear me. I'm not trying to crush your dreams. I don't want you to go out the doors tonight feeling discouraged. If anything, be even more encouraged by understanding the difference between confidence and pride. And there is a difference. So we'll read through the story of David and Goliath and see how each of these characteristics, pride and confidence, are personified. David personifies confidence, Goliath personifies pride. We see the story of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17. A little context about what's happening in this moment. You don't have to put up that verse quite yet. In 1 Samuel 17, we see that two people groups, two nations are at war with each other, the Israelites and the Philistines. They're very different from each other. It's actually really interesting to kind of read the difference between these two, but they're at war with each other, and they're in this area. There's this huge valley and two mountains on each side of the valley. The Israelites are camped out and set up on one mountain, and the Philistines are set up on the other mountain. And they're set up for this war, this huge battle that's going to go on in the middle. Soldiers are ready to go. Kings are ready to go. But instead, what happens is in verse 4 through 7, we're introduced to the character of Goliath. Goliath is introduced as the Philistines' champion. What that means is that Goliath is going to come out, and he's going to do something it was somewhat normal to do back in this time. But Goliath is going to come out, and basically, instead of saying, hey, let's have all of your thousands of soldiers battle our thousands of soldiers, how about this? I'll fight for the Philistines, send one person to fight me for the Israelites, we'll fight, and whoever wins the battle. And it seems like a valiant thing, but we're actually going to see in a bit that it's not, because Goliath's motivation is not to save the people around him and to prevent all of this destruction. It's really because he's just prideful in himself. But Goliath comes out, and we're introduced to him, and we see some really cool details about it. First of all, we see that Goliath is huge. He is this massive, insanely big human being. He's 13 feet, 3 inches tall. We see his height right there, 13 feet, 3 inches tall. I'm 6'3", 6'4". He's more than 2 of me, if you can picture that. More than 2 of me. Okay, by the way, that sounds kind of outlandish, like, okay, that's make-believe, and sometimes the Bible sounds outlandish. There's actually a ton of archaeological evidence for races of men who lived long ago that were huge. Weapons and tools. We even see they've discovered bones, human bones that are way bigger and denser than the bones that we have in our current body. You go to museums in Egypt and in that area, you'll see pottery and drawings of these huge giant men. So it's not that outlandish to hear that there's a character in the Bible who belonged to one of these races. So this dude is massively tall. Now, when I hear about a super tall guy, my mind goes to, I don't know if you've ever met a person like this, who they've just outgrown themselves. They're so tall that they're just like, it looks like a strong breeze can blow them over. Like the wind we have in Corona today, like it's just like Goliath would step outside and he'd just fall over. Goliath is not like that. Not only is he super tall, we see that he's insanely strong. His armor, just his jacket of armor, not the armor he wore on his pants, but just his jacket, was 194 and a half pounds, 195 pounds. I don't know if you've ever lifted 195 pounds. You can lift it. It's heavy, very heavy. Some of us, if you play sports in here, might even be able to, do a couple reps with it, whatever. But you don't wear it as a shirt. Goliath wears a 195-pound shirt. And if you did, you wouldn't be like, yeah, this feels good. Let's go fight someone, right? But that's Goliath. Goliath is so big and so strong that his upper body armor is 195 pounds. The head of his spear is 23 and a half pounds. Not his whole spear, just the head of his spear. I don't know if you've ever picked up a 25-pound plate or dumbbell. You can pick it up, you can even walk with it, but you can't fight someone with it. You can't throw it. This dude, the head of this dude's spear is 24 pounds. Not to mention it's attached to this massive 8 to 10-foot staff on the end of it. This dude is huge. He's strong. It says that he's skilled. He's a good fighter. He's victorious in all of his battles so far. He is a monster. And it says that Goliath comes out and he starts to mock and attack the nation of Israel. Look at what it says in verse 8 through 11. He, Goliath, stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine and you are not servants of Saul? Choose one man for yourselves, let him come down, and if he's able to fight and kill me, then we'll be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us. And the Philistine said, that's Goliath, said, I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. And when Saul and all of Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. So right here, we see that image. We see Goliath coming out and challenging the nation of Israel. But again, right here, we see the prideful motivation of Goliath. It wasn't this valiant effort to preserve life. It was a look at me and look how strong I am. I'm better than the entire nation of Israel. It's not just a, hey, let's settle this one-on-one. It says, I defy the nation of Israel. I will beat your greatest champion. I am bigger and stronger and better than anyone you can present to me. The motivation that Goliath has right here is pride. A prideful person, right here, we see the first thing that pride says. Pride says, I'm going to do what I'm good at. I'm going to fight for myself. The prideful person is motivated by personal gain and personal strength. Most of us aren't fighting battles in 195-pound chain armor. So what does that look like today? A lot of the way that pride comes up in our life is the way that we make decisions. What's your motivation behind the decisions that you're making? If you start asking yourself questions like, what's in it for me? Is that comfortable for me or is it not? What do I like? What do I want to do? It's not bad to be aware of your passions and desires. I'm all for that. In fact, I've even been meeting with the seniors once a month to do kind of a life skills thing. And one of the first things I did with you guys, what was the first thing we did that first night? You remember? Bucket list stuff. Remember that? Talked about bucket list, making a bucket list before you graduate high school. Set some goals, set some things that you want to do. I'm all about that. I'm all about knowing what you want, what your passions are, what your desires are. That's not bad. What's bad is when that becomes your motivation behind everything that you do. And right here, Goliath is saying, I'm fighting. He's not even fighting for the Philistines. He's fighting for himself. In fact, we actually see he is not a Philistine himself. He's technically on the Philistine side, but he's not a Philistine. He's fighting for himself. The prideful person will say, it's about me. I'm going to do what I'm good at. I'm going to do what I'm passionate about. I'm going to fight for myself. On the other hand, we introduce David. David comes on the scene. Remember, at this point, by the way, David is not in the army of the Israelites. David is still back home, probably being a shepherd. And it says that Goliath has come out 40 days in a row, and twice a day has made this remark. Twice a day for 40 days in a row, Goliath has come out and said, hey, Israel, I'm better than you. Your God sucks. I'll beat anyone that you present. And literally mocking and putting down the nation of Israel for 40 days, and no one will come out and fight him. And it says that David's dad sends him with gifts to go and check on his brothers. His two older brothers were in the army of the Israelites. And it says that he sends them with cheese and me a little charcuterie board. By the way, just charcuterie boards annoy me. Give us some real food. I'm all about cheese and meat, but it's not even real cheese and meat. Like the blueberry covered one that looks like a turd. Like, get out of that. Give me some queso. Anyway, besides the point, he's like, here, David, here's some charcuterie, here's some meats, here's some cheeses. Go check on your brothers. David goes, checks on them, and he's like, oh, you guys haven't even fought. What have you been doing for the last 40 days? And David starts asking around, and all his brothers and the other soldiers are like, this guy Goliath, he's huge, and we don't want to fight him. And David is about to do something that no one else is willing to do. David is about to fight Goliath. Why? Because David understands that confidence does not come from personal strength. It comes from spiritual provision. Pride is about my strength, my abilities, my passions, my motivation. Confidence is not about that. Confidence is about spiritual provision. Look at what he says in 1 Samuel 17:26. David said to the men who stood by him, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? You can go ahead and chuckle because I said circumcised. It's in the Bible. It talks about it. Hey, you guys, you're adults. You know what it is. But you got to remember at this point, David is not taking a jab at Goliath. It's not about that. Remember, that time circumcision was a sign of a covenant between God and man. In other words, David is saying, who is this man that is challenging our God? All of you guys are afraid of this guy. He's attacking your God. God has provided for us, has given us this land, has promised us victory, has provided for us day in and day out, and this guy is standing publicly mocking God, and you're just sitting here cowering away. Who is this guy? How is David so confident? Because David understands that confidence doesn't come from personal strength. It comes from spiritual provision. See, pride says, I'm going to do what I'm good at, and I'm going to fight for myself. But confidence says, I'm going to do what needs to be done. I'm going to fight for what's right. You see the difference between David and Goliath's motivation? Goliath's motivation is, what am I good at? What do I want? David's motivation is, what's right? What needs to be done? And what needs to be done is to go and stand up against this man who is putting down our God. So what do we see? We see David coming, and he's got all this confidence. By the way, he even echoes again in a little bit where his confidence comes from. When David is in this camp, and he's saying, he's like, I'll go and fight this guy. I'll go and fight this guy. Word kind of spreads, and people are like doubting him. Even his brothers are mad at him, like, you're an idiot. You're going to die. Word gets back to the king, to Saul. And Saul even is like, you're a kid. You're going to go and fight this guy. You're dumb. And look at how David responds to the king. David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And where there came a lion or a bear, and they took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them. For he has defied the armies of the living God. And then David said, and this is the important part right here, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will also deliver me from the hand of the Philistine. And so Saul said to David, all right, go, the Lord be with you. What's going on right here? Saul's like, you're going to die. David's like, you don't understand. I've fought lions, I've fought bears, I've killed them. By the way, that's sick. And then what he says, this giant, this dude, he's nothing different. Now this sounds like pride, except for what does David do? David doesn't say, he doesn't stop by saying, I'm going to kill him too. Right? The prideful person might say, like, I've killed lions, I've killed bears, I'll kill this guy too. David keeps going. David says, I've killed lions, I've killed bears, I'll kill this guy too, because the God who helped me kill the lion and the bear will also help me kill this guy. Amen. You see where the difference is this. The prideful person says, I can do this. The confident person says, my God can do this. David is aware of his accomplishments. There's nothing wrong with being aware of your accomplishments. We picture David as this innocent little child. He's a kid. In fact, most people believe that he was between the ages of 13 and 15 at this point, which is a crazy thing, younger than most of y'all at this point. But he was mature for his age. He's skilled. He's skilled in musician. He's well-spoken. And by this point, he's already fought lions and bears. So he's got all these accomplishments. Being humble and being confident doesn't mean you have to forget about your accomplishments. You can be excited about those and know and be confident in those, but it's about who you give the glory for it. The prideful person says, look at all I've done. I can do this too. The confident person says, look at all what my God has done. He'll do this too. You see the difference? It's about who gets the glory. The prideful person takes glory for themselves. The confident person gives glory to God. The prideful person, yeah, you can clap for that. Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. The prideful person says, I can do this. Confident person says, no, my God can do this. By the way, the difference there is that one of those things is unconditional. The prideful person says, I can do this. What happens when you can't? What happens when you get sick? What happens when you lose your strength? What happens when you lose your job? I can provide for my family. I got this. What happens when you lose your job tomorrow? No longer can you do that. What happens when the prideful person says, I'm going to fight for myself. I'm going to do what I'm good at. What happens when you get placed in a position that you're not good at? I want to go ahead and tell you this. I love this part of my job, the public speaking part, and I would like to say that I'm decent at it. This is about a 30-minute chunk of my job. All throughout the week, I do a lot of other things that, if I'm being honest, I'm not great at. I'm trying to be better at. But if my confidence comes from my ability to speak, I'm only confident for about 30 minutes a week. My confidence doesn't come from what I'm good at and what I'm bad at. My confidence comes from God, knowing that whether I'm doing what I'm good at and passionate about or doing something that I'm not great at, my God's there to equip me and empower me, and there's purpose in it. The difference is that confidence is unconditional because it comes from God. Matthew 19:26. Jesus said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. I know I took that verse right out of context, but the truth still lands. Jesus is saying, hey, there are going to be some things that you can't accomplish. And if your confidence comes from your abilities, your confidence will fail you. That's why pride will fail you. We know how the story ends. Pride fails Goliath. Confidence will never fail you because confidence is unconditional because it comes from God. And God is there with you to empower you and strengthen you even when you have failures and shortcomings. There's a difference. Confidence is way, way, way better. So David is ready to go out and fight this guy. This guy's been mocking Israel for so long, and he's ready to fight, and he's confident. He understands, I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to do what's necessary. He's giving God the credit. He says, my God can do this. So he's about to go out, and right before he fights, look at what David focuses on. David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. I think it's cool. It even shows David's confidence that he's even willing and ready to encourage the king. This little shepherd boy is encouraging the king. That's pretty cool. But what is he encouraging him about? What's he focusing on? A lot of people right before they would go out to battle would be focusing on, I got this, I can do this, let's go, it's about me. I'm going to become so famous after this. I'm going to be on posters. I'm going to get on a Wheaties box. David's not saying that. David's focusing on his ability to serve the people around him. He sees the soldiers. He sees his brothers. He sees the king. He says, hey, you guys don't worry. God's got this. I got this. His motivation not only is about what's right and what's necessary, it's about what needs to be done for the communal health of others. Goliath, on the other hand, what is he doing? He's trying to put down his opponent 1 Samuel 43 through 44. The Philistine, when David comes out to see him, this is how David responds. The Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you would come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, come to me and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. David is insulted, or Goliath is insulted that David is approaching him. Who are you, little boy, coming to fight me? You're pathetic. I'm going to kill you and leave you laying on the field because you don't even deserve to be buried. You see the difference between what their focus is on right at the last minute before they go to battle? David's focus is, how can I help others? Goliath's focus is, how can I belittle my opponent? Right? The prideful person says, I need to belittle my opponent. I've got to put down the people around me. The confident person says, I want to help people. Guys, this is so applicable in life because we live in a competitive culture. You know what? I'm competitive by nature. I like playing games where there are winners and losers. Even if I turn out to be the loser, I like that. I don't like ties. I believe it's a communist thing. That's why I don't like soccer. Sorry, soccer players. I don't believe in ties. Okay, so I'm competitive by nature. But in life, just because you're successful does not mean that other people have to be the loser. In the same way, if others are successful around you, it doesn't mean that you're defeated and you're a loser. I think it's one of the biggest failures of the church today is that we try to compete with other churches. We're not doing that. Let me tell you something. A confident person understands that when someone next to me, my friend, my family, the people around me, when they succeed, that's an opportunity not to pout and say, I've got to get better than them. I've got to get over them. How come they were chosen and not me? That's an opportunity to say, hey, good for you. Praise God for them. God, be with them. Help them. Use them in an incredible way. And I pray that you lead me to where I'm supposed to be. Too often we start to try to compete in life and consider ourselves winners and losers, but that's not the case. It's not about that. It's not about that. It's really sad to me when I see churches do it. Churches do it. They try to compete with other churches. That's against the mission. The mission is to build up others, to serve others, to love others, to represent God. If you want to be confident, work on celebrating the success of others and work on using your success to serve others. You can still strive to be great. That doesn't mean you have to belittle people around you. The prideful person will do that. It's not always obvious. It's not always beating your chest saying, I'm better than you. Sometimes it is on social media. It's I'm the best, I'm the greatest. A lot of times it's just jealousy. It's bitterness when someone else succeeds. That's pride. Confidence is good for them. Good for them. You see the difference there? The prideful person fights for themselves and only focuses on what they're good at. The prideful person finds their confidence, their pride in their own strengths and abilities. The prideful person is trying to belittle others and put themselves up. The confident person, it's about doing what's necessary, what's right. It's about finding strength in God, the provider. It's about serving others in every opportunity. And then we get to see how the story ends, how this historical event ends. I'm going to go ahead and read through it. But here's what I want you to focus on as I read through this part of Scripture. Look at how David goes into this point of battle. He doesn't go in as a soldier. He goes in as a shepherd, and it's really, really cool. It says David took his staff in his hand, his shepherd's staff, and he got 5 smooth stones from the brook, and he put them in his shepherd's pouch, and his sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. And David said to the Philistine, You come to me with a sword and a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head, and I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, so that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And that all the assembly may know that the Lord saves, not with the sword and spear. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. When the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle. By the way, isn't that a sign of confidence? He's not, I guess it's time. Here we go. God, please, please. I'm running straight towards the action because I know that my God has equipped me for it. He ran quickly towards the battle line to meet the Philistine. He put his hand in his bag and he took out a stone and he slung it and he struck the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead. He fell face to the ground. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and he struck the Philistine and killed him. Now there was no sword in the hand of David. So David ran, stood over Goliath, took his sword, drew it out, killed him, and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. Come on, David. That's what I'm talking about, dude. Big time. Such a cool moment. And there's a bunch of things to see right here. One, I love that David is excited and passionate about the mission. I love that he's confident. You'll notice that David does say almost the exact same thing to Goliath that Goliath just said to David. Goliath said to David, I'm going to kill you and I'm going to leave your body for the birds and the beasts. What does David say? I'm going to kill you and I'm going to leave your body for the birds and the beasts. What's the difference? Is David being prideful? Because Goliath said it out of pride. Why is David saying this? Is that what's he saying? You'll notice, one, it's not about what I'm going to do to you. It's my God will deliver you into my hands. Two, why did Goliath say he was going to leave David? Because David was unworthy of celebration, unworthy to be honored in his defeat. Why is David saying this to Goliath? As a warning, as justice. Even, think about it, as mercy to others. David says, I will leave your body as a sign that whoever smites and defiles the name of God will experience destruction. Very easily what could have happened is this. David could have done this, could have motivated the Israelites, and they could have kind of joined this I can't wait till someone comes and talks bad about God, and then we all know what happens. We all know it's going to be so much fun to watch. That's not what they're doing. He says, I'm going to leave your body as a sign so that people know that you do not mess with the living God of Israel, Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of armies, the Lord of hosts, because this is what happens. It's not pride, it's confidence, it's a warning, it's justice, it's mercy to the people around them. But here's the biggest thing right here. Here's the thing that I want to point out. David goes into this battle not as a soldier, but as a shepherd. Why is that important? Because David wasn't a soldier, he was a shepherd. Before this battle, he's brought into the king's tent, and the king presents him with armor, even puts the king's armor and weapons on him. He puts the helmet and the armor and gives him the sword, and is like, all right, you got this, go and fight it. And David's like, this isn't me. I'm not a soldier. I'm not going to fight like this. I think that's pretty cool because you got to admit, most of us were probably like, yeah, please give me all the armor you have. Give me a sword. All I have is this leather strap. How the heck am I supposed to do that? Give me what you have. But David's confidence doesn't come from his abilities. It comes from his identity in God. And his identity in God at the moment is in his season as a shepherd. The prideful person in this moment would take that and say, I'm going to try and pretend to be like someone that I'm not. I'm going to look the part. It makes sense that I would need armor. That's what pride does. Why? Because pride is satisfaction in your abilities. And you'd think that your abilities needs armor right there. David doesn't do that. David's confident saying, no, my God has put me here for a reason. And my God over the past years has prepared me for this moment as a shepherd. He's equipped me with this slingshot that I have mastered. By the way, there's a lesson there. Take advantage of the season that you're in because you never know when it's going to prepare you for your next season. If David overlooked his responsibilities as a shepherd, he would not be as skilled with a slingshot as he is. Take advantage of it. But also, when you get in a moment, don't pretend like someone that you're not. Be confident in who the Lord has made you to be. Be confident in your gifts and skills. I'm all about growth. And you know what? If David has years to prepare and he wants to master his skills as a soldier, fine. But in the moment, he says, I'm not a soldier, I'm a shepherd, so I'm going to fight this dude as a shepherd. I'm going to take my staff and my slingshot, and I'm going to kill him this way. By the way, thank God. Because if he had tried to do it as a soldier, he would have lost, probably. What is Goliath equipped with? Sword, spear, shield. He's equipped for hand-to-hand combat. Same thing would have been for an Israelite soldier. It would have been for hand-to-hand combat. If David goes to battle with Goliath in hand-to-hand combat, Goliath wins that. Goliath's like, dink, get out of here. But as a shepherd, David has been prepared for this day because he's been having to fight from a distance. He's had to take that slingshot and hit that bear, hit that lion from a distance, and then go and kill him. And that's the exact way that he does to Goliath. Before Goliath can even reach him, he gets that slingshot and kills him from a distance. Confidence doesn't come from pretending to be someone you're not. It comes from your identity in God. The prideful person says, I need to prove how great I am. I've got to fit this part. I've got to look the part. The confident person says, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I know who God has made me to be, and I'm confident in that role. And because of that confidence, David is victorious. There's a difference between pride and confidence. The biggest thing comes from your identity in God. If you are motivated by your success and your strengths, that's a red flag. You might be struggling with pride. And the reason it's destructive, it'll leave you alone. It'll leave you humiliated. It'll leave you living in destruction. But if you can confidently say, I'm going to do what's right, even when no one else will. I'm going to do what's necessary. That's a confident person. You'll never find yourself in a situation that doesn't have purpose and meaning. If you're constantly being motivated by your own abilities, that's pride. If you are built up and strengthened and encouraged by what God has done and continues to do in your life, that's confidence. If your focus is on putting yourself up and putting others down, that's pride. If your focus is on helping others, whether you're in the position of leadership or not, that's confidence. If you are pretending to be someone that you're not, trying to fit in, that's pride. If you're confident who the Lord has made you to be, that's confidence. That's not a green light to go and follow, I feel this way, so that's who I'm going to be. That's conviction. Conviction, knowing what God has called you to be. David is convicted knowing God has not made me a soldier. He's made me a shepherd, so I'm going to fight him as a shepherd. Be confident who the Lord has made you to be. God has given you skills and gifts and traits. It comes down to your identity in God. Do you find your strength in him? Do you find your purpose in him? Are you built up by him and by your accomplishments? Are you giving him the glory or yourself the glory? That's going to lead to a confident lifestyle. If you don't know God, you'll never experience it. Just to be honest with you guys. I love you. You can be skilled and gifted. That's awesome. But if you do not know God, you will never experience true confidence, because that's where confidence comes from. So I'd love to end this series by doing two things. One, I want to pray over y'all and pray that the Lord instills confidence in you. That everywhere you go, you are built up by him. You are prepared by him. You know his presence. You hear his voice. And then I'm going to lead you in a prayer to accept Jesus. If you've never received Jesus, tonight's your chance. And you might have questions. You know what? That's okay. We can talk to you about that. We can answer any questions you have afterwards. But right now, I want you to understand that God has a plan for you and a promise for you. He has provision for you, because that's where confidence comes from, not from personal strength, but from spiritual provision. He wants to provide for you and build you up. It's available to you. And I want you to accept it tonight. First things first, I want to pray over you guys. So if you don't mind, I want everyone to bow their heads and close their eyes. We've done this before, but we're going to do it again if you don't mind. If you're comfortable, I want to pray this blessing over you. I'm going to ask if you're comfortable to open up your hands and receive it. This is a sign of receiving, like I'm giving you a gift and you're taking it in. I'm going to pray this over you. I'm going to ask if you're comfortable to open up your hands and just receive this prayer. God, right now I pray that you instill confidence in every person in here. That you love them, that you show them that they are valued by you, that you understand them and know them. Instill in them a spirit of humility, that they don't need to prove anything to anyone. Give them direction and clarity and conviction. I pray that they understand the difference between confidence and pride, and they can live in confidence, that it doesn't lead to destruction or humiliation or loneliness, but rather success and blessings, and that they make a difference because of their confidence. That they never find themselves in a situation where they lack confidence. That you are always there for them, always giving them meaning and purpose and equipping them for that challenge. Now, as we say this attitude of prayer, no one's looking around. I want to invite you to receive Jesus tonight, whether it's for the first time or as a recommitment. I want you to be able to say, God, I need you. And the cool thing is that God doesn't make us jump through any hoops to earn it. He says you can come as you are, in your failures, in your mistakes, even in your pride. I'll forgive you and restore you and redeem you. And so whatever you came in with tonight, I'm going to invite you to say this prayer. and give your life to God. And according to Scripture, you are forgiven and redeemed in that moment. So you can say this prayer after me, repeat it after me. Say it under your breath, say it with a friend, just believe it. And don't say it to me, say it to God. Say, God, I need you. I say yes to you. I ask that you give me confidence, not pride, but confidence. Give me a spirit of humility to serve others. Instill your spirit in me so that I know right from wrong. I pray that you understand me every day. I pray that you forgive me for my sins, heal me of my hurt. I say yes to you and yes to the life you have for me. I trust you, God, and it's in your name that I pray. Amen. And amen. Can we give it up for anyone who said that prayer tonight? Praise God. HSM, we are going to stand and worship in just a second, and when we do this, this is a chance for you to build confidence. When we enter into the kingdom of heaven, we are going to do it with thanksgiving and praise, and right here we get to take a second, and regardless of what you're going through, maybe you came in here feeling ashamed or feeling beaten and broken, feeling like you don't belong. When we sing worship, when we lift up and proclaim the name of God, there's something encouraging and motivating about it. It's so healing.